Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
All right, we're going to get right to it. We have a special guest today to bring in because he's got his own show to do.
Yep.
Covers the Cincinnati Bengals, been doing it for a long time. He's a Western New York native, but he's a guy that really knows his stuff about the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Goodberry is going to join Matt Bovee and I.
I feel like besides the Bills, the second team I know the most about is the Bengals because of Joe, because of following him on social media. And I'm not even exaggerating. The content and context that you provide is unbelievable. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you got it. Just so everybody knows, last time we did this, we got made fun of because Matt and I are sharing headphones because we have one mic and one like outlet. So I just put one in my ear, one in his ear. We're sharing a mic, we're sharing headphones. But see that? That's what happens because we love each other. That's okay. So that's why we're doing this today. And also, before anything happens, because I do not want to forget, I want to say happy birthday to my son. 12th birthday today, Maximilian Antonino Capaccio. Joe, you know what it's like to have kids that age. Matt's not there quite yet. He's got about another 9 to 10 years to go.
Yeah, this is crazy. So I feel like I'm going to blink and we're going to be talking about my daughter's 11th or 12th birthday, but happy birthday to Max.
Yeah.
You know,
happy birthday, Max. I want to give one too. Yeah, it's fun, man, when they get to that age. That 12 to 15 is real fun.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's get into this particular matchup. And because you cover the Bengals, we'll just go right there and ask you about things from the Bengals side. How has this team changed since Joe Burrow became the starter again last week, and what has been the difference in approach with the Cincinnati Bengals, at least in the limited time you saw him in that one game?
Yeah, he was rusty to start. And I think they wanted to fast track him through that as much as possible. He threw 42 times in that first half on Thanksgiving night. And then second half, he was lights out. And really towards the second half of the second quarter, he looked like old Joe Burrow again. And the best thing, I think, is that the foot really, you couldn't tell. Like, if you didn't know he had surgery on his toe just 10 weeks ago, you probably would have had no idea. He was moving around just fine. He's got a carbon fiber plate in that shoe, keeps him from bending it too much. But athletically, no difference in his game. And in fact, he didn't look as rusty as I expected. I thought there'd be some more accuracy issues. He was maybe started the first drive or so like that, and then he was dialed in from there. So just from an offensive perspective, he looks good. The offense looks ready to roll. To me, the thing that's unexplainable, and I don't know why it happens, but the defense responded, right? They're like, Burrow's back, our quarterback's back, we've got a chance again, and the defense had the best game of the season. And it's been 2 weeks now, actually. They're top 10 in EPA defensively the last 2 weeks versus the Patriots and the Ravens. So maybe they're turning a corner. They've been playing young guys all year, so maybe they finally hit that threshold of they've had enough snaps. Now they can start playing as a unit.
Okay, so maybe they have turned that corner, but when I think about this game, I think about how the Bills are going to attack the Bengals, and I specifically think about the defense. I go to the running backs, and then I go to the tight ends as well, because I know those have been two areas where they struggle. Is that right? Is that the way the Bills should be trying to move the ball offensively in this game?
No doubt about it. I've actually looked at this. The Bengals are the worst team in the league this year against tight ends. They're giving up at least 30 more catches than the number 2 team, with at least about 250 more yards and double the touchdowns at tight end. And it almost was worse. Isaiah Likely almost scored again, or scored on Thursday night, would have made it definitely double. They were 14-7 going into last week in terms of the separation of how many touchdowns they've allowed to the number 2 team. They're also the number 32 team in fantasy points allowed to running backs. So yes, tight ends, running backs, that's where you want to go. At receiver, though, they were 8th a week ago when I last looked at this, and the Ravens really didn't have a big game by the receivers at all, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little higher.
What's the reason for that? Like, what is happening that tight ends are eating against the Bengals?
They have started 2 rookie linebackers. They drafted Demetrius Knight in round 2 and Barrett Carter in round 4. They quickly pivoted to Carter over Logan Wilson, ultimately trading Logan Wilson to Dallas, and just said, we're going to take our lumps, and these young guys are going to be the future at linebacker for us. But they've been terrible. And, whether it's you're watching the film or the data or PFF has them as the top or as the bottom 2 starting linebackers in the league right now. And it's been a mess. They have miscommunication errors. They have missed tackles. They're kind of confused in coverage, not really sure of how to cover these guys. Linebacker is so different in college than it is in the NFL. I think that's probably the hardest transition. As a draft guy, like, that's the one I think teams struggle with the most, of like plugging guys in right away. The Bengals thought they could, and they were woefully wrong about it. And it's beaten them all year.
So one more defensive question. So they're pretty good at containing wide receivers for opposing teams. And for the Bills, okay, that's not really a huge issue because they don't really utilize their wide receivers a ton. But should they be able then to zero in on James Cook and like really try and sell out to stop them, like stop the run? Because it does feel like that would kind of be the game plan the Bills have, very similar to kind of what we saw against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so the last 4 weeks, the Bengals are 13th in EPA defense against the run. So they have made a change since their bye week. They've gone to a more 5-man front, a 3-4 defense and odd front, putting 3 defensive tackles out there, using just the 2 inside linebackers inside, and then having Miles Murphy and Joseph Osai, who are traditional DNs, as the outside linebackers. It gets more beef, more size, gets these edge guys a little kicked out, attack wider, which helps them out as well. So they've been better against the run over the last month. I still think, though, Buffalo is one of the best running teams in the league. But still, the Bengals were historically bad. They were, for this season, 31st EPA against the run. They were the worst run defense we've seen in modern football history 9 weeks through. So maybe they've gotten better. I still think that's the way to attack them.
Still no Trey Hendrickson, though, we're thinking in this game, right? He was kind of already basically ruled out early in the week.
Yeah, that's right. He's doubtful. Last we heard, it's probably a sports hernia. They're calling it a hip pelvis type area. I think they're just letting it heal. I believe the last report also was that he'll probably have to have surgery in the offseason. So we may not see him.
Let's flip it to the other side of the ball. We talk a little bit about Burrow. How about their running game? I mean, they're running the ball pretty well. Chase Brown, especially, obviously, maybe it didn't start off like that, but they've been really running the ball really effectively and well. And obviously having Burrow will help that even more, I would say. But what has been the biggest reason for their ability to run the ball?
So they got a new offensive line coach in the offseason, Scott Peters, who was going to bring in a whole new technique plan for them and really overhaul what they're doing technique-wise. And they drafted Dylan Fairchild in the 3rd round to play left guard. They signed Dalton Reisner to play right guard for them. I think that the offensive line's been pretty solidified for them for most of the season. They really haven't had the injuries. They've had to rotate guard a little bit at right guard because guys have been in and out. Dalton Reisner missed some time. Lucas Patrick missed some time. And then they plugged in Jalen Rivers, who was a 5th round pick for a few games. But Marius Mims taking another step at right tackle. They feel good about that. I think the offensive line is gelling. At the week 4 mark, I believe that was the Vikings game, I said this is the worst run blocking scheme I've ever seen in my life watching NFL football. And from that point, they're a top 3 running team in the league in terms of EPA success rate. They just don't run it a lot. So you're going to look at it. If you just look at the basic numbers, you're like, yeah, what are they, 30th in the league in rush yards? Yeah, they're never going to be a team that's going to line up and run it 30 times. They're going to throw it 40 times and run it 20. But in those 20, they're going to be really successful lately. And they look really good. Chase Brown has run the ball extremely well. 6 straight games of 100+ offensive yards, rushing, receiving, which is a Bengals record. He is the number 2 option in this offense and the number 2 weapon. He's got more catches than T. Higgins, and that was before T missed last week. So, he is the guy to pay attention to after Jamar Chase, and they lean on him a lot.
I know we're recording this Wednesday afternoon, and there's still, going to be updates throughout the course of the week. Is the thought that T. Higgins plays, that he comes out of protocol, or is this one of those ones that is truly up in the air?
He did go through the walkthrough on Monday when they got back into Paycor Stadium and started getting on the field. So we'll have to see. He's still in the protocol. Last we heard on Tuesday. Zach Taylor's going to talk soon as the time of us recording this. We'll see what that progress looks like. I assume he's going to be cleared. It was a bad concussion, though. Apparently, he lost consciousness and was pretty shooken up afterwards. So to get back after 10 days, I feel like it's probably cutting it close, erring on the side of safety, but it does sound like there is a chance.
Same thing here with Deion Dawkins because he had his concussion on Thursday night, and then he was still in protocol on Monday leading into this week, which is, a full week later, basically. So, we'll see where it goes, but he's going to also take part in the walkthrough the Bills are holding on Wednesday. When we think of the Bengals, we've always thought of lately this offensive line that's in flux, a lot of injuries. They're getting Burrow beat up. It sounds like you're saying, hey, offensive line coaches help. They're run blocking well. What about pass blocking?
Pass blocking is also, they're allowing the lowest sack rate they have since 2014. And those were good offensive lines, the 2011 through 2015 era when they had Andrew Whitworth anchoring that team. So it's a good rate. It's 9th in the league right now for lowest sack rate. And it's hard to really say for sure because Jake Browning was a guy who didn't have great pocket presence. So if we're looking at all year stats, Burrow came into this first game, got crushed by the Browns pass rush, who's killing everyone. And then Browning was iffy, and then Joe Flacco couldn't move and got rid of the ball and threw it away as soon as any pressure hit his face. So the numbers are kind of askew. But Burrow last week got sacked on an unblocked pressure. He just didn't see Marlon Humphrey coming off the edge. Other than that, he wasn't touched, and he did a good job evading pressure, dancing in the pocket, buying time. But the offensive line had their best pass blocking grade from PFF since 2016. So I hope it's not a high note. I hope this is a new offensive line.
Joe, you're obviously so tuned in to both of these teams. If you were, a Bengals fan, why would you be confident the Bengals could win this game? And if you were your brother, a Bills fan, why do you think the Bills will be able to ultimately win this game?
Yeah, if I'm a Bengals fan looking at this, I think, you know what, we got Joe Burrow. Anything is possible. And I think any team, any fan base that has their quarterback and sees that believes the same thing. And I think it's true. I think Jamar Chase, T. Higgins can take over a game at any time. I think Chase Brown is a good back. The offense is good. This offense can put up 35-40. I mean, they were doing it with Flacco and Jake Browning at times. This offense works. And then you insert a top 5 quarterback into it. The sky's the limit offensively. And when you have that, you have a chance in any game. And that's even with the defense being as poor as it's been. Hopefully the defense is on the right track, though. And if I'm a Bills fan, I look at this and I say, listen, we're the Bills. We win these games. Like these games, you're coming into Buffalo. This is a team that's 4-8. Oh, should we really be talking about a 4-8 team feeling this confident that they can beat a perennial playoff team like us? We can run the ball, and we're willing to run the ball. If it's not Josh's day, if the receivers can't get open, that's fine. We'll line up and run 2 plays 40 times each and get James Cook to 200 yards. And I think that's a fine game plan. And the defense should be fine. I do think if Joey Bosa is not out there, that could be a big hit to the Bills defense, because I think he's the guy that could take advantage. And if not, that probably neutralizes a few things that I worry about as a Bengals fan. But if you're the Bills, this is the game you should win and should win handedly.
And it looks like Bosa will not be available. We'll see more throughout the week, but it's trending pretty much that way. All right, last thing, and then we've got to let you go. Anything notable on special teams? Kicking game, return game, either side of coverage or returns?
Yeah, I think the Bengals have done great on special teams this year. I think Evan McPherson looks all the way back to where he was. The only real long kick he's missed this year was when they didn't get a K-ball in on time, and he had to kick with a regular ball, fell wildly short. So if you ever want a comparison for what the K-balls are doing this year, that's one. It was short at like 53, and I'm like, this guy can hit from 65 in warm-ups. What's going on here? Charlie Jones has been a good return man. He's got a kick return for a touchdown. He almost had another one against the Patriots, but it was called back on a flimsy holding call. And Ryan Recco is their punter. He's got a booming leg. He can absolutely kick that ball. So they're a good special teams unit.
Joe, I think if the Bengals win this game, they make the playoffs. I really do. I think that they can go on a run. It feels like it's very much like if you do this, you will be able to take care of business for the rest of the season.
I think for 2 years in a row, and it's kind of become their mantra, and I hate it at this point, but if they beat the Bills, it's going to be like no one wants to play the Bengals. No one wants to play them right now. Like this, they're back and they're dangerous and they can throw 40 on you at any point. That's scary. Nobody wants that. And then they'll probably miss the playoffs, and it'll still be the same thing of, whoo, I'm glad the Bengals aren't in the playoffs because they could have made a run. And yeah, it stinks, but that's what the hole they dug themselves into.
It is amazing. Bengals, Chiefs, Ravens, Bills, and it could be literally 3 or 4 or 2 or whatever on the outside looking in at the end of this year, which is wild. All right, Joe Goodberry covers the Bengals. Tell everybody where they can listen to you. You are a Western New York native, so if you want to support him in that way as well.
Yeah, that's right. At Joe Goodberry on Twitter is the best place to find me. If you're interested, there will be film reviews after this week, although the Buffalo media has got you covered on all that stuff. Great media that covers the Bills. But look for it on the First Star Media YouTube page.
Joe, thanks a lot, buddy. We'll let you go. Appreciate you,
buddy. Thanks, guys.
All right, you got it. That is Joe Goodberry here on the Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bove, and we are going to talk a little bit more about the Bills and what we heard from Sean McDermott out at practice. Want to remind everybody we are on video, and of course that's at Sal Sports on the YouTube channel. Thanks a lot for all the new subscribers coming aboard. We got a lot of new subscribers, new comments coming in. Make sure you fill up those likes and comments, and of course audio wherever you pod, iTunes, Spotify. We're getting a lot of people showing their best podcasts for the year. Yes. And we're getting people saying you guys are at the top of my list. It's always Game Day in Buffalo, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out to everybody who listens and watches. We very much appreciate it. We're very, very grateful for it. We are grateful that Joe was able to start the podcast off with us because he really is just so smart with all of his Bengals knowledge. Right before talking to Joe, we heard from Bills head coach Sean McDermott, and I think that it'll kind of piece things together. So on Wednesday, as of this recording, Deion Dawkins, Spencer Brown, and Dalton Kincaid, all limited participants in the walkthrough that the Bills are hosting on Wednesday. I think that is a very good sign, especially for Dalton Kincaid in the steps that he could be taking to be back. And you heard what Joe said, like, this is a defense that struggles against tight ends. That would be a huge boost for the Bills. That said, Joey Bosa, week-to-week injury, he's not going to play. He ain't playing this week. He's not practicing. It feels like this is going to be at least a couple weeks. Terrell Bernard also not practicing today, and Joshua Palmer also not practicing today. So it feels like after he practiced last week on Friday, now he isn't practicing today. McDermott was specifically asked, did he have a setback? And he said it's not necessarily a setback, but his body is just not in a good enough place. That doesn't paint a super promising picture to me this week. So I feel like right now, probably a coin flip on Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. Dalton Kincaid, I would think, is a relatively safe bet. He plays. And then those three guys not practicing, it's not like any of those guys are probably going to return on Thursday. So I don't think that they'll be available.
Just to clarify for everybody, when the Bills hold a walkthrough and Sean McDermott says they're limited, they're not limited in the walkthrough. What it is it's a determination of what they would be if it was a full practice. So they'll do the walkthrough, but if they were having a full practice, they would be termed limited. They have to base their injury report on a full practice, not a walkthrough, because then everybody would be a full participant. It was just a walkthrough, essentially. The other part of this is the Bills did re-sign defensive end Andre Jones Jr., the practice squad, which is another indication Joey Bosa is not going to play. Then it gets to me too. Are we going to see Morgan Fox for the first time this week? The Bills, they have to elevate someone. It's either going to be Morgan Fox, Andre Jones Jr., or Shaq Lawson.
I think that Morgan Fox would have the inside track. Maybe it's just even because he joined before Shaq Lawson got here. Now, that said, Shaq Lawson has a very strong understanding of this defense from all of his time here. It just feels like Morgan Fox would kind of fit a role that they would be looking to.
He's more of a pass rusher than Shaq.
Shaq Lawson is kind of more of a hybrid. And if they're not going to have Joey Bosa, it makes that is a big loss for the Bills. Like in this game, for sure, that is a very, very big loss. It's weird that it has come to this, but Joey Bosa went most of the season healthy or playing through the injuries that he had. Now this team is relatively close to the playoffs if they get a couple more wins. When they signed Joey Bosa, it was put him in bubble wrap until the playoffs. I think if they win this game, they will be extremely cautious with Joey Bosa to make sure that they, have him, assuming they're ultimately able to get to the postseason.
Yeah, so, even going into New England, which you're facing Drake May, and that's going to be a monster game. You cannot sacrifice what could be down the road by putting Joey Bosa out any earlier than he has to.
This is going to Joe's point about the Bengals getting in, and like nobody would want to play the Bengals. I feel a little bit that way about the Bills right now because it feels like the Bills are more destined to be a wild card team than they are to be the team that wins the AFC East. And that's just the reality at this point. But I think about all of those teams that would be in as the 2, the 3, and the 4 seeds. Who would want to play the Bills? Who would want to play Josh Allen in a playoff game? Like that would be a terrible matchup for any. I mean, the Bills could very likely be favored against the Colts, against the whoever wins the AFC North, or might be the Jags now, might be the Texans, whoever it ultimately is. So I feel very much the same way about the Bengals as I do about the Bills. If they just get in, they can be very, very dangerous. I know the expectations were so much greater for the Bills, but I also do think it's important to look around the league and look around the AFC. Like we're talking about a playoff picture right now that does not include the Chiefs, a tie in the AFC North between the Ravens and the Steelers, and some other teams that are just like very much a surprise. Just get in, and a win on Sunday would be a monumental step in that direction. I was looking at the New York Times playoff predictor this morning. They currently have a 91% chance at making the playoffs. The Bills.
Well, look, we're going to look at on our screen right now. We're looking at the AFC playoff standings, and it's really comes down to right now 4 teams for 3 spots: Chargers, Colts, Bills, and Texans. Because you don't think the Steelers are going to get there because they're 2 games behind the Bills for this, and the Bills have head-to-head, and the Chiefs are 2 games and the Bills have head-to-head. So it really comes down to that. And out of the teams that are there, Chargers, Colts, Bills, Texans. Colts and Texans still play each other. Colts and Jags still play each other. Mm-hmm. So I think out of the AFC South, Jacksonville, Indy, and Houston, someone's going to just kind of get taken like away from there anyway based on playing each other.
And I think it's going to be the Colts because the Colts remaining schedule.
Wild, right?
It's a gauntlet.
Yeah,
like right. They had a nice run here, but let's bring up their schedule. Sal's bringing it up right now. Listen to this final stretch for the Colts. At the Jags, at the Seahawks, home against the 49ers, home against the Jags, at the Texans to close out the season. You're talking about legitimate defenses there that this team is going to have to go in and beat. So that's why it's like, okay, I'm not sure what to expect from the Colts. And then go to the Jags, if you don't mind. So the Jags' remaining schedule isn't nearly as difficult. They've got the Colts, the Jets, the Broncos, the Colts again, and then the Titans. So you look at that and you go, okay, the Colts twice and the Broncos, like those are tough matchups against pretty good defenses. And then the Jets and the Titans, we shall see. But it feels like those teams are kind of competing with each other. And then the same thing about like the Ravens.
Look at the Texans schedule.
Yeah, the Texans schedule have the Chiefs, the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Colts. And it brings.
If they get by the Chiefs, they might run the table.
Yeah, they could definitely run the table. But it's also why I don't care mathematically what it does now. I think you are rooting for the Texans in that game.
See, this is a great question, Matt. I don't know the answer because if the Bills are going to get the 5 seed, which they could very well, we don't know, could be 6, could be 7. You could be looking at Bills they'd be on the road to the 4. The 4 could be the AFC South winner. That could be the Texans.
Mm-hmm.
If you're rooting for the Texans, you're essentially saying you're rooting for them to win the division, and that could be Bills at Texans, and no one really wants that, right?
I don't think anybody really wants that, but I do firmly believe that the 6 or the 7 seed might be better than the 5 seed.
Agreed.
Because I don't think that the AFC South winner is going to fall to 4th place. I think the 4th place winner is going to be the AFC North. And I think if you're the Bills, you want nothing to do if you get in with going to Baltimore or going to Cincinnati. If you got to go back for Pittsburgh, I think you would sign up for that right now. I just don't think Pittsburgh.
Would you rather, if I gave you these 3 scenarios right now for the Bills, at the first round of the playoffs, at Baltimore, at Cincy, at Houston, rank them. How your preference?
Houston would be.
You really?
Yeah.
After what you saw a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I want to chalk that Texans game up to, even with CJ Stroud coming back, even with that offense starting to take steps, I want to chalk that up to Deion Dawkins was clearly not right, because he went back into the concussion protocol after clearing the concussion protocol, and Spencer Brown playing with essentially one arm. I mean, it was such a drastic difference between what we saw in the Thursday night game against Houston and then the game against the Steelers with 2 backup tackles. I just think that they would do a better job there. And I think that the Bills would be able to figure that. If I'm the Bills, I want nothing to do with the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm going to have a wild opposite take for you. I think I might choose the Ravens over the other 2 because of right now. They're not right. They're not the same team. And we know when the Bills say we're going to shut down Derrick Henry, they were able to do it last year in the playoffs pretty much. And the Ravens made a few costly mistakes, which they've done in the playoffs. I'm not saying I want the Bills to play Baltimore. I just think going to Houston and what we've seen there, I've seen it too many times now.
Yeah, you're right.
Where it just doesn't add up. And the Ravens aren't right now. So it's interesting. What about at Denver, at New England? What if it came down to the Bills playing at one of those places as a 7 traveling to a 2?
I would like their chances against Denver. New England would be tricky because New England's defense is good and Drake May is also very, very good. I would like the Bills' chances against Bo Nix, even though they have a phenomenal defense, but that phenomenal defense did just give up 27 points to Marcus Mariota and the Commanders, so I feel like you could move the ball on them. I still think of this a little bit too baseline, but I think about the quarterbacks and I think about who. It's weird because they have lost this year to Davis Mills. They have lost to Tua. They have lost to some pretty average quarterbacks, but in a playoff setting, it's how much do you trust the quarterback? Even though he's only in his 2nd year, I trust Drake May to go out and play a really, really good game. I think he's very, very good. But if that's the path that it takes the Bills to get to, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? Like They need to, if they win 2 of their last 5 games, they've got about a 75% chance of getting into the playoffs with not knowing anything else that happens. I'm saying if they go 2-3 from here on out, it's about a 75% chance. An important reminder, 3 out of their last 5 games are in Orchard Park. In the last 3 seasons combined, they have lost 3 games inside this building, and that is including the playoffs. So I would like to think that they are able to win some of the, quote, tougher games they have. That to me means you got to split between Philly and Cincy. You got to win one of those games. You got to beat the Jets, and then you win one other game somewhere down the road.
The Jets are playing a little bit better. The Miami Dolphins are playing a little bit better. Do you think the Jets or Dolphins, how much of a shot do you believe? Because I don't think you can say never in the NFL, that either would have of beating the New England Patriots. If the Bills were to win this game against Cincy, the reason I bring this up, and they go to New England and win, they'll be 1 game back. They would need New England to lose a division game, though. It would have to come against either the Jets or Dolphins at the end of the season.
I mean, it's possible. I don't think it's probable, but I do think it's possible because the team that they play at, the Bills, the Patriots are on their bye right now. Their final 4 games are Bills, Ravens, Jets, Dolphins. I feel very confident that they'll win at least one of those games. I still think that they win both of them, though. I think that, even though the Dolphins are.
Remember a few years ago, Fitz for the Dolphins went there and beat them in a game that mattered for the Bills big time. They may never know, right? I think the Dolphins are playing better. It's a little bit wishful thinking. I get it. But right now, the Patriots say they deserve the credit for being where they are. Now, people could talk about their schedule for sure because they have if you've seen it, I don't know if you've seen this, but now remember early in the year, people were like, Bills have played nobody. The Bills actually have one of the hardest and highest strength of wins in the league now, especially in their conference at 473. Patriots are at 342, but it doesn't matter. I say it every year. It doesn't matter who's on your schedule. You got to beat the teams that are right there. Okay, take it back to this week. A big talking point this week has been the emergence of Shaq Thompson and what he's meant for this defense. Yeah. I do not expect Terrell Bernard to play this week, but are you of the same mindset as me and a lot of people believing you might just have to stick with Shaq Thompson in the middle, even when Terrell Bernard is healthy?
Yes. And I don't think that Terrell Bernard is close enough at being healthy that you're going to have an overly difficult decision unless you ultimately get to the playoffs. But I would not take Shaq Thompson off the field. It is a noticeable difference right now. And I think that there is a world where they're both playing and there's some sort of rotation that they use because Shaq Thompson is pretty versatile, but I would not take Shaq Thompson off the field right now. I think your defense is notably better when he is out there. And I don't think that is completely just on Terrell Bernard. I think that's because of Terrell Bernard's injury. And I also just think it's the type of player that Shaq Thompson is. He brings size and physicality that makes them a tougher defense to run on. And, with Terrell Bernard's injury as an undersized linebacker, teams push him back and they create holes and they create lanes, and that lets opposing offenses do so much more. When you're running for 5, 6, 7 yards of carry against the Bills and then they have to commit to trying to stop the run, then they could take advantage of you in the pass game. So I think the defense has made really impressive strides the last few weeks with Shaq Thompson, with the emergence of Christian Benford, and now starting to really shadow somebody. I don't know what they do this week. I don't know if assuming T. Higgins plays, maybe you have him cover T. Higgins and then you kind of shade coverage over to Jamar because you want to have two guys there. Maybe that's it's going to be a really tough matchup, especially with a pass rush that we don't think is going to be, fully loaded.
Yeah. On the Bernard point, I'll just also point out, I think Terrell Bernard's a really good linebacker, but to Matt's point, he's right. He's built more for a sideline to sideline type of game. And right now teams are going head on against the Bills and saying, you can't stop us because you're lighter and you're more athletic. And Shaq Thompson allows them to be able to counter that a little bit. And it's helped Matt Milano, I think, be able to play his role a little bit better. How about at the other corner? Tre'Davious White's been playing pretty good football lately. You do have Max Harrison. We all want to see Max Harrison play. But you're also going against, now there's speed out there. This isn't like Tyreek Hill and Xavier Worthy. There's a little more speed this week on the edges. But this is a veteran type of group. This might be another game where you're trusting Tre'Davious White a little bit more.
You know what I thought about on the drive here today, because I was thinking about just the Bills secondary as a whole. I think we have worked ourselves to a position where Tre'Davious White is back again next year as a backup to Max Harrison.
I don't doubt it.
Because he has played so steady. Now, that's not to say he is the Trey White of old. But I don't think there have been many times when he has really hurt them. And with Max Harrison being the future, this team has had problems with depth at cornerback.
I think the only game might have been Miami here when he was giving so much space to Waddle. That was it, because he knew he couldn't keep up. But I think other than that, Matt, you're right. He's played good football.
Yeah, and that's why I think that there is a world where he is back as a backup and somebody who you trust. But at the same time, I think that the rotation continues. I think that it goes back to a on and off for Hairston and Trey White, as opposed to 2 for Trey and 1 for Hairston. That was, I think, because he was coming out of the concussion protocol. So they wanted to have a little bit of a lighter workload. I do think the athleticism and speed is noticeable for Max Hairston. That changes things, especially alongside Cole Bishop. But there is something to be said about the reliability of Trey White, because even look at the other Dolphins game where Max Hairston against a really good wide receiver just got burned by Jalen Waddle. He had an interception in the game, but I don't know if Trey gives up that play there. I don't know. That's all speculation, though.
And also, I like what you said earlier about how this coaching staff has done a really good job on the defensive end. I think personnel-wise, understanding. And I'll give you an example. I think we all recognize that Jordan Hancock brings speed to the secondary, and you want to see him play. The right play was Jordan Poyer last week against that team, against the Steelers, against a team that has 12 personnel and 13 personnel and big bodies, and they're going to run the ball and they're going to keep everything short. Jordan Poyer was the right play. I wonder if this week might be the play where you have to see a little more Jordan Hancock.
I think so. I think that there's a possibility, but at the same time, I think it's a similar conversation to what we just said about Tre'Davious White, about how much they trust Jordan Poyer and just the reliability that comes with Jordan Poyer. So I do think that we will see more Jordan Hancock than we did, but still not where he is like the full-time safety alongside Cole Bishop. The one thing I will say, though, is like with this emergence of the defense in the last month, you feel much better about the building blocks that they have in the secondary because of Christian Benford playing like an elite cornerback, because of Max Hairston flashing at times, because of Cole Bishop continuing to ascend, and even just Jordan Hancock's spot duty of like, maybe he is the same thing next year, or maybe he could truly take over one of those spots. And then it brings you to like the Taron Johnson conversation of what they do. But that's we've got months and months and months to talk about the offseason.
No doubt about it. And some other things coming up the rest of this season. The Bills have 4 IR to return designations they've used. They still have 4 more they can use for the regular season, so that shouldn't be an issue. They get 2 more in the playoffs. You're hoping that Ed Oliver comes back. McCole Hardman could be on the table with Joshua Palmer's injury. We'll see what that means for Brandon Cook. So a lot to get to and to sort out. Last thing for you, Matt Bove, because this has been on my brain because we had a big debate on this on Friday. Did you watch the Black Friday game, the Bears and Eagles?
Yes, I did. I watched some of it, yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you saw the debate online about the score and what the Eagles did, but I want to see where you fall on this. Near the end of the game,
I know what you're talking about.
the Eagles were down 15 points. Yep. They scored with about 3.5 minutes left, I believe, with all timeouts remaining. They went for 2. So it's 9. They go for 2 to make it 7 instead of kicking to make it 8. Big debate ensues on whether that was the right play or not. What do you think?
I think mathematically and analytically, it's the right play because you need to know what you need to win the game. But I think from like a feel standpoint.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
See, I disagree with that thinking because you still know what you need to win the game. If you kick the extra point, you still need 8 points to tie before anything. I push back on I need more information. You still have as much information as you need. You're just 8 instead of 9 now.
Yeah, but if you get to that point again and you don't get that play, you lose the game anyway. So I don't disagree. I am actually on your side of this, but it's not because of the math. It's because of the way a game is going. When I think of the most real-world example I can give you is when the Ravens scored against the Bills in the playoff game last year, and then Mark Andrews dropped that ball. I never for a second after they scored that touchdown didn't think that they were getting the 2-point conversion. I think when you have that and you're going against a tired defense and you're playing with that type of moxie and confidence, the likelihood that you convert there is substantially higher than mathematically saying it's about a 50-50 chance.
So I believe I totally understand the sentiment of going for 2. I do. I totally get that. But I think I'm going to say it this way because I had this debate. I had a local high school football coach text me and say, you're absolutely right. And I'm just going to make it as simple as possible for you. You just make it a 1-score game. Every time you can, you make it a 1-score game. And I said, that's as simple as you can say it, right? Because yes, if you make it, it's a 1-score game. But if you don't, it's not. It's 2. You make it a 1-score game. As quick as you can, you make it a 1-score game.
Yeah, that's fair. And I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, I think the numbers back up that it's not a bad idea to try and figure out what you need as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. My biggest thing is I think you put stress on an offense when they're only up 8 as opposed to up 9. And someone said to me, well, what do you mean? They're not calling the game differently. I think they are. You get into a 3rd and 4, they need the first down if it's a 1-score game. If not, they can comfortably run the ball, let time go, and then punt it back to you.
It's the exact same conversation of the Ravens game I just brought up where the Bills were down at the other end zone and had a chance to score a touchdown and put the game away, but they ended up not going for it because they could make it an 8-score game. So that's the evidence of your point of like, there is something to be said about making it an 8-score game or 8-point game as opposed to a 7-point game. And that's why the Bills did it, because they were like, even if we give up a touchdown, we would then also have to give up the 2-point conversion. And then luckily for them, Mark Andrews dropped that ball and they ended up winning the game. So it's very much a feel and a go back and forth thing.
And time and timeouts matter.
Yeah.
Time and timeouts matter, right?
Yeah.
Eagles had 3.5 minutes with 3 timeouts. So I say kick the 1. But if they had 2.5 and no timeouts, I think you got to go maybe.
What if it was this exact scenario, but it happened 10 minutes earlier in the game? Then do you like going for 2? Because then you have the information that you need of even if we don't get it,
I think I can still get 2 possessions.
Yeah.
I think I'm okay. I'm more okay with it there. I don't know if I still love it, but I'm more okay there. I still think you're chasing points. I'm more okay with it there.
I think teams often chase points a little too early. I do think that sometimes that happens where it's like, oh, just take the points here or just do this. It's a similar debate to what the Bills did at the end of the first half against the Steelers, where they were going to go for it, and then they ended up kicking the field goal, and it turned out to – I don't know if it turned out to be the right move because they took the penalty and then they were kind of forced their hand into it, but you could have debated, is it better to go for it and have a tie game at halftime, or is it better to just take the 3 points and be trailing? I don't know what the right answer is.
They took the 3, they came out, they scored in the first play of the second half on defense, and the game switched anyway. All right, thanks a lot to Joe Goodberry. Great follow on Twitter, and as well as a great analyst for the Cincinnati Bengals. We will be back later this week. Matt Bove, Sal Capaccio. It's always game day in Buffalo. The Bills and the Bengals Sunday. Don't forget, folks, 1 p.m. It was a 4:25 p.m. original scheduled start time. It's a 1 p.m. start time here at Highmark Stadium. We'll talk to you next time and later this week. Thanks a lot to our producer, Mike Rabier.